Okay, so we're going to talk about solving linear inequalities, which should look somewhat familiar to you. So I have an example written here, and I want you to try and solve this on your own, and then once you've given it a try, unpause the video and come on back, and I'm going to walk us through it. So first I'm going to combine like terms on both sides. This is just like solving an equation, except now we have an less than sign instead of an equals sign. And then I'm going to get all of my x's over to one side and everything else over to the other side. And then the final step is I want to isolate x, so I'm going to divide by -8. But you have to remember that when you divide by a negative number with inequalities, you have to flip the sign. So this is a less than, but I'm flipping it when I divide by -8, and I get x is less than -13/8. It's kind of a gross number, but that's okay. So that's pretty much just like solving an equation. But I want to talk a little bit about how you could write your answer. So first, you could write your answer as an inequality, which is what I've already done up there. So that's just like x is less than -13/8. Okay, that's kind of natural just from where we ended up. Let's talk about another way. You could also write it as a graph. So we're gonna, for a graph, you need to make a number line. We're only looking at that x-axis basically. And you plot your point, -13/8. And then basically now, in this example, we know that x is less than -13/8. So it can't be -13/8. So we kind of we put an open circle there, and then shade to the left, because it could be any of these numbers to the left, all the way to -infinity. Now, let's say instead you had x is less than or equal to -13/8. Then your graph is going to look very similar, but slightly different, in that you'll plot your point, but you shade in that circle at -13/8, because it could be -13/8, as well as all of these values that are less than -13/8 now. So the big difference is just a less than or equals sign. If our main value is not included in the answer, we're going to have an open circle. If it is included in the answer, we're going to have a closed circle. Okay. Then we have one more way to write our answer. We could use interval notation. So in interval notation, you're going to have two numbers. You're going to list two numbers. You're going to have your smaller number here and your larger number here. And you're basically saying you want the endpoints of your interval that x could be. So in this case, the largest number that x could possibly be is -13/8. And then it could get infinitely small, so you write -infinity here. Now, you either need to put brackets or parentheses around this. The way that you decide whether it's brackets or parentheses is you again look at whether your endpoints are included or not. So in our example, x is less than -13/8. So that endpoint is not included. So we're going to have a parentheses there. And then -infinity, you always have a parentheses around your infinity or your -infinity. Let's say instead we had x is less than or equal to -13/8. Then you'd still have these two numbers, same numbers. The only difference is now you'd have a bracket around here and a parentheses around here, because now that -13/8 is included in the answer. Okay, let's do one example and write it in all three of those forms. So if I had 2x minus 3 is less than or equal to 5. It's very simple to solve. We're just going to get all of our x terms isolated on one side and then divide. So I have x is less than or equal to 4. Now, if I want to write this in all three ways, I've already written it as an inequality here as a graph. I'll put my main value here, and now I'm going to look, is this going to be shaded or open? Because this is a grade less than or equal to sign, 4 is included in the answer. So I'm going to shade in 4, and then I'm going to shade in everything to the left. That's my graph. And then in my interval notation, I could go all the way to negative infinity, and the largest possible value is 4. 4 is included in the answer because it's a less than or equals to sign. So I'm going to put a bracket around that and a parentheses around this. So all three of these ways work as a way to show your answer. If I don't specify which way to put your answer, you can use any of them. If I do specify, you'll need to use the one